In this video I'm going to do my best to explain some of the barriers that stop classical piano players improvising, and I'm going to show you 3 things that will hopefully unlock your playing and get you improvising. Are you ready? Now, I've always been a chord-based improvising piano player. I never had any classical training, never really learned to read music, but I so often meet piano players who are classically trained, who are very accomplished classical players, but take their music away, ask them to improvise something they've not memorized previously, and they're suddenly seemingly unable to play the piano. I guess that I should caveat this with the fact that these are my findings and my experience. It seems to me that in the UK this is a common occurrence, but you might disagree with me, or wherever you're from they might have fantastic piano teachers churning out well-rounded piano players. But for those of you who resonate with what I'm saying, or you find yourself in the same boat, then please continue watching. Fundamentally, I think that the thing stopping you is just gaps in your theory knowledge, or maybe even that you've got the theory knowledge and it's the connections that you're missing from your theory to the practical application on the piano. You don't know what you don't know, right? In these cases, you've been taught a narrow spectrum which allows you to achieve a narrow slice of what being a piano player or a musician really is, which is effectively reading music to a high level. But I don't think anyone who wants to learn to play the piano starts off thinking, I only want to play the dots on the page, I only want to play what's in front of me, I don't want to know any more context around music and be able to compose or improvise or arrange. In my opinion, the cause of this pool of piano players is due to bad teachers. Although they may well only be teaching what they've been taught, it's all that they know. If you reached a high level of classical piano, then you were no doubt taught some theory stuff. You were taught scales, keys, arpeggios, you were maybe taught the circle of fifths, but you were probably taught this as a separate thing to the piano. Over here we'll teach you how to read music, read the dots on the page, how the dots relate to the keys, and over here we'll teach you some music theory as well. But heaven forbid we explain how the two are inextricably linked. So outside of learning the dots on the page and how those dots relate to the keys on the piano, there's a whole theoretical framework and foundation that make it all work. How do composers know what notes go together? They understand the harmonic framework underneath the music, where the notes come from, what notes work well together. You may well understand a lot of this theory already, but have never connected the dots of how this allows you to improvise on the piano. You see, the way I see it is that improvising is just composing in the moment. Or maybe a better way of saying it is that composing is just improvising and then remembering it, playing it again, writing it down. So it seems to me that a lot of classical piano teachers aren't teaching this wider context of music theory. So here's some tips to get you started and hopefully connect some of the dots to stuff that you probably already know. Number 1, chords and keys. If you've got some experience in traditional piano lessons, you will have probably learnt scales, arpeggios, what keys have what notes in them, sharps and flats. If you're really lucky, you might have been taught what chords are and how to build chords. If not, don't fret. Here's a quick run through. Every key has a set of chords that belongs to that key. Each note in the key has its own chord. We'll use the key of C to demonstrate because it's visually the easiest to understand. I'm sure you already know that the key of C has no sharps or flats. And we make chords for the key of C by combining the notes that we have in the key. But how do we know which notes? There's a simple system to do that. We just add notes in the interval of thirds. But even simpler just means picking a note, skipping a note, picking a note, and repeating. So here we have the notes of C major scale laid out, and I'm going to number them as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's go through and make chords for each note. So we'll start with our C, and then we're going to go up a third, which is just skipping over our D, and we're going to choose E. So E is the first note that we add to the C. And then we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to move up a third, which is our G. So we add our G as well. So now we have C, E, and G to make up our first chord. So because we started that process on a C, this is some kind of C chord, but we're going to get to naming exactly what that C chord is in a minute. Let's first do the same process for the rest of the notes in the scale. So D. Taking our D, we're going to move up a third. We're going to move up another third using notes from the scale. And now we have our next chord. Same thing on starting on the E. Third chord. A fourth chord. A 5 chord. Sixth chord. 7 chord. And then we're back to the beginning again. Back that C is the same as the C that we started with. So there, we've identified all the chords from the key of C. Okay, so let's get to naming these chords. Now, looking at the piano, they all look pretty similar. The shape of my hand just stays the same and moves up. But if we look closely, they don't all share the same characteristics. Now, for every major key, we have 3 major chords and 3 minor chords. Same for every key. And the first, the fourth, and the fifth chord are always major. The second, third, and sixth are always minor in every key. Which means we have our first chord in the key of C is a C major. Our fourth chord is an F major. Our fifth chord is a G major. And our second is a D minor. Third is an E minor. Our sixth is an A minor. Now let's have a closer look at the first 2 chords and see what the differences are. So the C major, if we look at the interval between the first 2 notes, our C and our E, there is 4 semitones in between them. So to move up from a C to an E, you need to go 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones. Okay, this interval, 4 semitones, is also known as a major third. Now the interval between our second 2 notes, our E and our G, to get from our E to our G, we need to go up 1, 2, 3 semitones. The interval of 3 semitones is also known as a minor third. So C major is made up of an interval of a major third followed by an interval of a minor third. Okay, 4 semitones followed by 3 semitones. Now if we look at D minor, do the same thing. So the distance between our root and our third, the first 2 notes, is 1, 2, 3 semitones. So that first interval is a minor third, not a major third. And the interval between our third and our fifth is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the interval between the top of our chord is a major third, 4 semitones. So that's why this is a minor chord and this is a major chord. This is what differentiates the two. A major chord has a major third followed by a minor third. A minor chord has a minor third followed by a major third. Okay, and that's the same for all the major chords and the major keys. So if I look at my F major, it's the same thing. I've got a major third followed by a minor third. G major is the same. Major third followed by a minor third. All my minor chords are the same. I've got a minor third followed by a major third in D minor. A minor third followed by a major third for E minor. Minor third followed by a major third for A minor. And we can do that for any chord. If you want to find any major chord, if we go up 4 semitones, give our major third followed by a minor third, 1, 2, 3 semitones, that's going to be A flat major. Yeah. If we swap that middle note around so that now it becomes 3 semitones followed by 4 semitones, we get A flat minor. Okay, we've talked about the first 6 chords in the key of C, but there are 7 chords. So what about this final chord? We've got our C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor. But what's this? Okay, what have we got here? Let's have a look. Our first interval, our root and our third is, what sort of third is it? A major third or a minor third? It's 3 semitones, it's a minor third. So maybe this is a minor chord. Is this B minor? But let's look at our interval between our third and our fifth. 1, 2, 3, that's a minor third as well. So this is a minor third followed by a minor third, which is different to a major chord or a minor chord. So what kind of chord is this? A minor third followed by a minor third. That's right. It's a diminished triad. So there it is. You now know how to create chords and find chords in a key. And it's the same deal in any key. Okay, if we took E flat, we took our major scale, and then on each note of the scale, we just build up in thirds using the notes from the scale. So that's our first chord, E flat. And back to E flat. So we know that our first chord, our fourth chord, and our fifth chord are major chords. Our second, our third, and our sixth are minor chords, and our seventh is a diminished chord. We now know all the chords for E flat major. So one final thing around chords, building chords. To build a chord, we've been stacking thirds. And up to now, we've been just talking about 3-note chords, triads. And they're the bones of a chord. But we can continue to add notes, or what we call extensions, to this chord by continuing to add the thirds from the rest of the scale. So we'd stopped at our G here, but if we take another third in the key of C, we've got here, which is our seventh. So we've got our root, our third, our fifth. Now we've got our seventh. We can add our ninth, and our 11th, and our 13th. There's all these extra notes that we can add to build up chords as it gets more complex. These sort of extensions are really typical in jazz music, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to sort of keep things generally stuck to our triads, just our root, our third, and our fifth. The 7th, the 9th, the 11th, the 13th. That's a bit further down the line. Now, if you're feeling studious, you could write out all the chords in all the major keys. If you do this, you might notice that all these major and minor chords don't just live in one key. There's a crossover. C major is the first chord in C major, but it's also the fourth chord in G major, and it's the fifth chord in F major. Right, let's move on to the next step. Chord inversions. Okay, so we've learned how to create chords, but it's really important to highlight that it's the specific notes that make up the chord. It's not how or where you play it on the piano. It's those notes. So for example, a B flat major chord is made up of a B flat, a D, and an F. Okay? So if we were working out in the same that we just have done, we would play like this. But the reality is the B flat major chord is B, D, and F, wherever it is. So wherever you play those three notes, that's a B flat chord. So when you have those notes together in any order, you're outlining a B flat chord. And it's the same with every chord. So that brings me to talking about inversions. Inversions are simply reordering the notes in a chord. Now so far when we've built our chords, we've always played them in root position. So in root position, our root note is at the bottom. First inversion, our root note's at the top, our third's at the bottom. Second inversion, our third's at the top and our fifth's at the bottom. The naming of our notes in our chords, the root, the third and the fifth, it doesn't change when we move where we play them. The root note of C major chord is always C. The third of a C major chord is always E, and the fifth of a C major chord is always G. So however you play, wherever you play them, if I play my E at the top, my third, that's still the third, even though I've put the G in the middle. Okay? Now it's really important. It's really important to get super familiar with our inversions. We want to know these chords in all their inversions, inside out and back to front. As piano players, it's not very often that our right hand's going to be jumping around a lot. But if we played all our chords in root position, we would find our hands doing this. But also, playing everything in root position doesn't sound great, doesn't flow, doesn't feel nice, doesn't give us many options. A lot of the time, we're looking to move our right hand as little as possible. And for that, we mix up our different inversions. We find the closest inversion of the chord to where our hands already are. Now, I recommend, as an exercise to get used to this, I recommend going around the circle of fifths and playing all the chords in different inversions. So if we start with C in root position, and then we go to our G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, C. And do this with minor chords as well. C minor, G minor, D minor, A minor, E minor, B minor, F sharp minor, C sharp minor, A flat minor, E flat minor, B flat minor, F minor, and back to C minor. And each time, start this from a different position. If you start this in root position, you're only going to always play the same inversions. So practice this again, but we're going to start C in first inversion. C, G, D, A, E. And we're playing different inversions of the chords. You want to be familiar with that. One other exercise you can do is just get used to playing the inversions of the chords up and down the piano. You can play them as block chords, or you can break them up. Do it for all chords. You want to know these inversions inside and out, so you're not even thinking about where's your nearest chord. With a little bit of work, practicing those exercises to get used to those different inversions, you'll soon have those inversions underneath your fingers. Trust me. Point number 3. Let's start improvising. Okay, now we can build all our chords in all our keys. We understand the inversions of our chords. We're now ready to start improvising. Now, step number 1 is deciding what chords. Now, in reality, you could put any chords together. But at this point, it's probably best not to run before we can walk, so let's just stay diatonic. Diatonic just means that we're staying within a key center, so all the notes and the chords that we're going to use are going to come from the same key. Most pop and rock music that you hear tends to be diatonic, whereas most jazz, classical, gospel music tends to have non-diatonic harmony and might even modulate between keys. At this stage, we're going to keep it simple. But simple doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. Okay? Right, so back to step number 1. What chords? We're going to use the first 6 chords of the major key. So we're going to use the 3 major chords and the 3 minor chords. We're going to start with the 1 chord and we're going to finish with the 1 chord. So it feels like we've gone somewhere and then we are resolving back to where we started. But what chords come in between? Well, we're going to improvise. We know what chords we're drawing from. So we're going to decide in the moment, what chords do I want to use? So now we've decided what chords we're going to pick from. Step number 2 is how are we going to play these chords? We talked earlier about different inversions and about how that helps us to keep our right hand movement to a minimum. We'll be using a combination of different inversions of different chords. But then we've got like endless different options of how we play these chords. Do we play them as full chords? Or broken chords. And we can also improvise with the rhythm. And tempo. And the dynamics. And when we're playing, we want to be trying to incorporate these different options and different ideas. Now, I think the most important thing about improvising is listening. Listen, listen, listen. Are you listening? I want you to actively listen to what you're creating. Where is it leading you? Higher or lower? Softer or louder? Listen, listen, listen. Really be active with what you're doing. Okay, so let's try something. I'm going to start with C, I'm going to end with C, but where I go in between, who knows? Here's something that maybe feels different. Something else. The more you do this and the more familiar you get with the chords and the relationship between the chords and the notes, the more you'll have a command over being able to execute what you want to execute. Where your ear is leading you, you'll be able to move in that direction. But at this point, it's about experimenting, trying different things. So in summary, what we talked about today, these are the building blocks. They're not the hard and fast rules that never get broken. It can get more complex with extensions and non-diatonic harmony. But these are the foundations of every piece you've ever played. And maybe with this knowledge, it can help you unpick some of those songs that you know and see them in a new light. Like, for example, Moonlight Sonata. Like, what's going on here? I can unpick this. Okay, so that's just a C sharp minor chord in second inversion. C sharp minor. So there's just bass note goes down to the B, but my right hand's still playing a C sharp minor. It's just a C sharp minor over a B. What's that? It's an A major chord. What's that? Okay, so A, D, F, put the A at the top. D major chord. So there's a D major chord, but this has got the third, the F sharp, at the bottom. To a, which is a, it's like, this is a G sharp major with a 7, but we haven't played the 5th. That's back to a C sharp minor over a G sharp. To a G, it's a G sharp sus, so we're suspending the 3rd, playing the 4th, to back to a G sharp 7, and then which is another C sharp minor, but just in first inversion, going up to second inversion. So I can improvise around that structure. Just using the information I know about those chords, playing the information that I know about those chords. I'm playing them in different inversions. I'm breaking up the notes, and I'm improvising with that structure. Same with like something else like the Satie piece. What's going on there? Okay, so if I take my G, it's just a G with a major 7, so we're in the key of D major, 2 sharps, C sharp and F sharp. So that's G major 7. What's that? So we've got D down here, A, C sharp, F. So if we put this in a different order and play D, F sharp, A, C sharp, D major with a C sharp on the top, so it's D major 7. So we're going from G major 7 to D major 7, and that just repeats. So that melody, it's just notes that are in the key of D major, the songs in the key of D major. So I'll do the same thing, just using notes from the key of D major. It's really simple underneath it all. Getting your fingers to do that takes a bit of time, but once you get comfortable with chords, inversions, use scales, it'll come. So at the heart of these compositions, they're not complex, and they're built upon the foundations of the theory that we've just explored already. So now you've got the knowledge to unpick some of the compositions that you know and see what's going on underneath. What chords are they using? How are they spreading the chords out? Are they playing them as broken chords? Or are they playing them as full chords? Are they just using chords from the diatonic key, or have they got some non-diatonic chords in there as well? Maybe you could even compose something yourself, which, remember, is just improvising and then writing down the bits that you like. I really hope this might have been useful for some people, and that maybe it's helped kickstart your improvising journey. I'd love to hear from you if it has. And yeah, thanks for being here. Maybe see you next time.